Okay, so in my last video, I asked the question, would you be interested in listening to a video about me talking about my publishing journey over the last few years? And in that video, I got enough replies for me to go ahead and actually create this video. However, before I start talking here about my KDP journey, I just wanted to say that this is going to be a long video, and I know that some people really don't like listening to videos or me for too long. So just bear that in mind before I started. And also, I don't want to make this video just about myself. What I want to do with this video, and the purpose of this video, is to try and get a more real image of what publishing is like and what making money online is actually like. Because I know that we can come onto YouTube and look at like 5-tip videos or $10,000 per month niche videos, but unfortunately with these quick videos, like 10-minute videos, it doesn't really paint the whole picture of publishing or making money online. So that's what I want to try and do in this video today, is to give like the whole picture. So hopefully by the end of this video, you're going to feel a lot more inspired as well. And hopefully this video makes people realize that you don't have to have tons of money, tons of skill, tons of graphic design in order to start making sales, because I started my publishing business with absolutely no money whatsoever. And on top of that, I consider myself to be a pretty normal person. So I go into this with the attitude that if I can do this, then anyone watching this video can do this as well. Okay, so very quickly before I get started here. So instead of me just randomly putting videos up onto YouTube and hoping that it helps someone out there, what I want to do from time to time is to actually ask what type of videos you'd be interested in watching on this channel, and to also give suggestions about upcoming video ideas. So I had a really good idea, and I think this is a good idea, and I want you to leave a message in the comment to let me know if you want to see this video or not. But what I had in mind was to create a video showing you pretty much step by step what I would do if I had to start my publishing business again. After everything that I've learned, everything that I've succeeded with, everything that I've failed with, what would I do in order to start again? So I've been actually thinking about this myself recently. What would I actually do if I had to start again and had not much money to get started with? And I think what I concluded from that is that I would personally use somewhere like BookBolt in order to get started creating my Amazon business. So in that video, what I'd be doing is showing you how you can use somewhere like BookBolt to actually create your entire Amazon business from scratch whilst investing very little money. And I'll try and go over absolutely everything. So the keyword research, creating puzzle books, creating interiors, doing your front cover designs, using pre-made interiors like these ones here from BookBolt. And you know, with BookBolt, it's less than, if you use my code, it's going to be less than $10 a month. So I think it's like $7 a month. So that video would be about how you can actually start your Amazon business with just $7. Okay, so I think I would love to make that video. If you want to see that video, please leave a message saying that you want to see it. But I just think it would be really fantastic to just kind of have a business in a box video. But anyway, let's get on with this video for now. And also that would be an extremely practical video with lots of step-by-step, lots of demonstrations, and pretty much everything you could do to start building your Amazon business from pretty much nothing. Okay, so let's get started with this video. I'm going to talk about my publishing journey over the last few years. So I started paperback publishing at the end of 2018. However, prior to that, between I think it was 2012 and 2014 perhaps, I was actually publishing ebooks. And this is going to lead me to my very first point about listening to stupid people on the internet. And I know that sounds harsh, but it is something, it's a reality that is actually going to hold you back like crazy. And back in 2012, 2013, 2014, when I was publishing ebooks onto Amazon, people were saying the same things that they were saying right now. They were saying these years ago, and they're going to carry on saying these same things, that Amazon is dead. You don't have, the opportunity is not there anymore. People have been saying this for years. So this was my first kind of hurdle that I had to try and get past, was actually realizing that Amazon's not really going to go anywhere. Like, the things are going to change over time, but Amazon and publishing is always pretty much going to be here for us to make money. So I think if you're one of these people, if you're not making sales, or if you're not sure about getting started, and my best piece of advice here for you would be to just block out the noise completely. Just block it out. People talking about saturation, people talking about publishing being dead, people talking about all sorts, too much competition, all these sorts of things. My best piece of advice is just to block that noise out and just focus on your business. Just go into this business with the attitude that there is always going to be room for creative people to make money. Okay, so my advice here is, like I said, block out the noise. People are going to say this In 2021, they're going to say there's no opportunities left. They're going to say it in 2022, 2023, 2024 and beyond. They're going to say the same things every single year, and mostly it comes from people that put in low amounts of effort and therefore don't see many results. So they make the assumption that, you know, if they can't do something, then, you know, the entire thing is broken for everybody, but it isn't. The opportunity is always going to be there for creative people. And just to throw out something that I find quite interesting, and just to give you an idea of how much potential, how much money you can make from doing work online and publishing, back in 2013 or 2014, I can't remember, it was when I was publishing ebooks, so not paperbacks, but ebooks. I actually had a book at the time that was ranked better in the Amazon store than one of J.K. Rowling's books. Very briefly, obviously didn't mean I was making more money than J.K. Rowling, but it's just fascinating to see that the potential for independent publishers like us is absolutely huge, and it's always going to be huge. Okay, so this moves me on to my next biggest mistake here. So during this time where I was publishing ebooks and I was making quite a lot of money every single month for around 3 years, I think it was, Amazon changed something. So I don't want to get into too much detail about what they changed, but basically Amazon changed something to the point where I was making around $2,000 to $3,000 per month. And overnight, that income, because of Amazon's change, it dropped to about $30 a month. Okay, so this was a huge mistake that I made, was basically giving up. So at that point, that was pretty heartbreaking to see all of my income go overnight. And what I did from there was absolutely nothing. And what I should have been doing was adapting to Amazon and trying to find new ways to make money with Amazon, because other people carried on just like they were, and they carried on making money. But I did nothing. I just let my publishing business die completely, even though I'd saved a lot of money from what I'd earned from ebook publishing. I sort of went into it with the attitude, well, that's it done, and I gave up. And then eventually I lost pretty much all of my money from my bank account because I didn't have any income coming in. And then from 3 years after that, I think I pretty much did absolutely nothing in terms of making money online. So I think that was between 2015 and 2018. I was doing absolutely nothing, and I had around minus $50 in my account every single month because of a gym membership. So all that money that I'd earned from Amazon, I'd lost it. And a big part of that was my fault, is because I didn't adapt to the changes that happen in Amazon. That's a big thing here. We need to understand that Amazon can change at any point. Like, something could happen that, for low content publishing, for example, there might be something that happens at some point where Amazon decides you're now going to pay $10 per listing for every low content book that you upload, or there's going to be a new category that's just for low content books, and it's going to affect sales and all sorts of things. So you got to be prepared for these type of things to happen, and it is heartbreaking at times, but I promise you there is always a way to carry on publishing and making money with this business. Okay, so that's the tip there, is to adapt with the time and adapt with the changes. Okay, so that moves me on to the end of 2018, and I would apologize here because I'm not 100% sure of the timeline with my publishing journey, but I think it's around the end of 2018 I got back into publishing. It was actually my dad that suggested, why don't you try publishing again? If you've got no money, if you're going to do nothing with your life, maybe just try doing some publishing or something like that again. And I believe at the time my response to him was that the opportunity's gone. All the money was back in ebooks in 2012. That's the only time you could have made money. There's no way to make money with Amazon in 2018. But it got to the point where he kind of hassled me. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm just going to do it just to shut him up. And what I did from there was actually borrow, I think, $200 to $300 to buy a course. Now, in previous videos, I have said that I've never actually followed anyone else's course. And the reason that I say that I've never followed someone's course is because the course that I bought for like $300 was so bad. It was just terrible, and it was nowhere near worth $300. However, I'm extremely grateful that I bought that course, because it is actually the thing that got me back into publishing again. So that was the scenario toward the end of 2018, where I had very little money, had a really awful course to go by, and just had an idea for a book that I wanted to create. So the first book that I created was actually a cookbook. Now, I know it sounds like one of those things where you're just copying and pasting recipes off the internet and just taking generic information, but it was actually something that I felt, the niche that it was in was something I felt passionate about. And I ended up writing this book entirely by myself, and that took between, I think it was 2 to 3 months to actually write this book. and I actually had to borrow $15, I think, in order to actually get the front cover made from Fiverr. So yeah, I've created this very first book, 2 months, no money whatsoever, and then I uploaded it onto Amazon. So I published the book and it didn't make any sales for a very long time. I think 2 months went by, and it was incredibly disheartening that I put so much effort into this first book that I made, and I wasn't seeing any, like nothing was happening, like not even ebook sales, like no pages read, nothing was happening for this book that I uploaded. Until one day I woke up and I had my first sale with this book. And honestly, I think anyone that's had their first sale recently, or if they can remember their first sale, you realize that it's such an incredible feeling, and it's so motivating to see your first sale. And even though it took like 2 months to make my first sale with that book that I uploaded still makes me around $100 to $200 every single month. So that's what I want to get at here, is that if you create a good book, and I think this book sits around like 4.3 star ratings with 160 ratings, I think. If you create a good book, it can make you money for a very, very long time. So that book's been up and selling for 3 years. And the other thing here is that just because your book doesn't sell straight away, that doesn't mean you need to get disheartened. It doesn't mean that at some point it won't pick up. And this happened without me running ads to it. I didn't even know that ads existed back then, to be honest. It was all organic sales, and to be honest, it was in a niche that anyone would look at and say that's completely saturated, even back in 2018. So what was the secret here to creating or finding this niche here that's allowed me to sell a book for 3 years and get good reviews on that book as well? Well, the niche research, I went onto Amazon and I searched for cookbooks, and then I saw one that I thought I could write myself, and I could see that it had traffic going to it just because there were some other books that had really good BSRs, tons of competition. Then I put my version of the book out there. That is pretty much it. So back to the end of 2018 and now looking toward the start of 2019, obviously I was feeling much more motivated. And once you start seeing some sales, you're going to feel that motivation and you're going to want to create more books. And that's exactly what I did. I went with 2 more cookbooks that were kind of in the same niche, the things that I kind of had some knowledge about. And this is kind of strange because those books don't sell anymore. However, during the first like 2 to 3 months of those books going live, one of them sold extremely well. I think one of them sold 100 books the first or second month that it was live on Amazon. Then it got a 1-star review, and then it stopped selling completely, and it doesn't make any sales anymore because there were some things in that book that just weren't good enough. And the other book made, I think, maybe 30 to 40 sales the first or second month that it was live. And it sits around, it makes sales from time to time on Amazon. It's got like a 4.1 star rating, I think, at the moment, but it makes some sales, nothing significant. Again, wrote both of these books myself. And if I'm being perfectly honest, the book that got a 1-star review, I feel like I rushed it. And the criticism from the 1-star review, I think, was that the book wasn't formatted correctly or wasn't formatted well enough for them. It got the 1-star review and then it lost pretty much all traction. And that was kind of really sad to see that happen because, again, I did put a decent amount of effort into that. But that's the reality of Amazon. This is a huge point here that I'm going to make, is that I want to swear, but these things happen is what I'm going to say. Like, you get negative reviews from people that aren't happy with crazy things. Like, it just happens. But what can you do about this? You can't really do anything. If it's completely unjustified, the 1-star review, then I think you can try and get Amazon to remove it. But for the most part, I don't think they will. And my best piece of advice here would be to actually look at the criticism, because, you know, if the formatting in the book isn't good enough and someone's not happy with the experience that they've got from paying for your book, then it's valid. Like, you know, your book wasn't good enough and they've reflected that with a 1-star review. So my advice here would be to get over it. Unfortunately, it happens, and actually use it as feedback for your upcoming books. Okay, so you can make those books better and see what your customers are being frustrated by, because it does happen. It will happen to you. You just need to get over it as soon as you can. Okay, so at this point, we're toward the start of 2019, I guess getting toward the middle of 2019. Again, I really don't know the dates for these things, but let's just go with it for the sake of this video. Halfway through that year was when I actually found out about low content publishing. So at this point comes my biggest regret and my biggest mistakes when it comes to publishing on Amazon. I got caught up with low content publishing. Now, I'm not saying low content publishing isn't good. I'm saying there's a way to do it and there is a way to not do it. And I ended up doing it the way that you should not do it. And that was to try and quickly create as many low content books as you can without actually caring about who your audience is, not caring about who buys your book, who your book is aimed at, what niche your book is in. Just creating these books and then hoping that some of them stick in the marketplace and make you sell. This was my biggest mistake. I think I made maybe 200 of these books. And I was sat at my computer. I was absolutely hell-bent on creating these books because you see other people that have like thousands of books out there. So you rush and you think, volume is what matters in the low content business world. So I spent ages and ages and ages on the computer, maybe working sometimes over 12 hours a day on these low content books, and nothing came from it. There was like one or two that make sales every now and then still, but for the most part, the time that I spent doing these low content books just wasn't worth it at all. And I think this is going to move me on to quite a big point here is, and I know a lot of people feel this themselves, is like, you have to actually make a return on the time, not just the money, but the time that you put into your business. You've got to make a return on that in terms of money. And if you're sat producing low content books all day, like you're just a slave to low content book publishing, then that's not for me. Like, even if you make a few dollars here and there, like it just sucks like to spend that much time because you've been told that low content book publishing is the way forward. It just ends up being a waste of time. And I've still got some of these books on my account. I actually unpublished a load of them because I was kind of scared that Amazon at some point would be like, you've got too many books with, strange author names, or, there's a duplicate interior in there somewhere and they're just going to shut my account down or something like that. It was kind of scary to have, things in my account that maybe Amazon didn't like. They're not there anymore, fortunately, because I unpublished them. But this is one of those things where the more books that you have on Amazon, the more risky it sort of becomes, or the more risky it feels it's becoming, at least. And the quicker that you make these books, I think the more prone you are to making mistakes and doing things that Amazon are going to shut you down for. Okay, so at that point, I've created these kind of 3 higher content books, and then I've got into low content publishing where I've produced tons and tons of these books. I know 200 low content books isn't that much compared to some people, but for me, it feels like way too much. The amount of work I put in, it just felt crazy to put that much work into such a poor project, basically. After seeing that I wasn't really making any sales from all this effort, all this time that I put into this project of low content books, wasn't really seeing any sales. And I think a lot of you, anyone that's listening to this video that does low content publishing this way, I think you'll feel the same thing, where you've put so much effort in and you just don't see any sort of return on these books. So like I said, I got completely disheartened from doing this. And then I think maybe I took a month from actually not publishing anything at all. I don't think I even touched my account for a month after I produced these low content books, just because I was kind of fed up. It was so tedious. I'm like, this isn't the life, like doing this. I don't want to sit on the computer all day. I want some freedom, and producing books all day, every day just isn't for me. So at that point, I came back to Amazon because obviously I had some other books that were making sales. Some of the low content books were making a sale here and there. It was kind of in, that sort of position where I was making like, $100 a month, that type of thing, where it's not terrible, but it's obviously not good either. But I wanted to carry on, and I had a little bit of money to invest. So it was at this point here that I decided, and after seeing other people doing well with low content book publishing, it was at this point that I decided that I need to do something different, because what I was seeing on Amazon was that a lot of people that were doing low content publishing were good at designs. And I looked at my design skills for some of the covers I've made, and I was like, man, I can't believe I actually produced that and tried to sell it to people because it was so bad. And also on top of that, I just I don't want to learn to design things better. I just don't desire to have that skill set and the time required to get to the point where I'm actually good at designing things. So what I did from here was to go into the mindset of trying to offer something different. I want to try and be the person that has something very, very unique on Amazon. And I've spoken about this in so many videos about making sure that if you can't design things well, or if you don't have much money to spend, then you need to at least have something that's different, but also speak to your niche as well. So in fact, I think this was one of the second batches of low content books that I made. I think it was a bucket journal, and it was just a black book cover with white text on the front, and it had like a kind of funny saying on the front of it, and it was the first of its kind. No one else had done this. It was relevant to the niche. It had a swear word in it, so it was kind of edgy. It really spoke to a certain type of person looking for bucket list journals, and it ended up being the best. Ended up being like the bestseller out of all the low content books that I did before, the 200 that I put up. This one book that I made in the bucket list journal niche was outselling all of these books. And the reason that it outsold all these books is because I just did something different. I was being creative. I was thinking outside the box. And this leads me to my next piece of advice, would be that if you're ever worried about Amazon being saturated or Amazon dying or anything like that, if you can remain creative, if you can always think outside the box with pretty much everything that you create on Amazon, then you're going to be sorted for a very, very long time, because I promise you it makes a huge difference. Because a lot, customers are coming onto Amazon and they're seeing the same thing over and over and over again. But as soon as you offer them something different, something funny, something witty, something cringy, that's when you start getting eyes on your books ahead of other people's books instead. And that's when you start making sales. Okay, so that's the biggest thing for low content publishing for me, was to try and just be different from what's out there, especially if you can't design things very well. Okay, so that was my first attempt at creating a low content book that actually gave something different to the niche, the market that I was in. What did I do from there after I created this book? I created, I think, maybe 30 to 40 more unique books, and whilst none of them were as good as this first book, the bucket list, they still sold much better than anything else that I'd been selling before. So a couple of the niches here that did really well for me were password logbooks, bucket list journals, blank recipe books, and diabetes logbooks, I think was one of them. But they all kind of had like something unique on the front cover. It all had like a quote or a saying or something that I'd made up that was just different from what other people were doing. And I had these interiors made from Upwork.com, and to have these made was incredibly cheap, sort of like $1 per interior, this type of business. So really, really cheap, unique interiors. And I would say those books did okay, and it sort of led me to the point, and I feel like a lot of people listening to this video who are doing low content publishing are going to feel the same thing. It got to the point where I was like, how many of these books do I need to upload? How many of these do I need to create and actually in order to earn decent money? And I think you look at it and you think, I need to produce thousands, hundreds to thousands of these type of books in order to make good money. Which moves me on now to the next best thing. In fact, actually one of the best things that I've ever done in my publishing business was to look at other niches, basically look at a variety of different niches to publish in. Okay, so from there, after producing these 40-50 low content books, I went on to sort of medium content books. And the first type of medium content book that I created, I actually outsourced, because obviously at this point I had a couple $100 coming in here and there each month. I can't remember exactly how much, but I had enough money to actually outsource some of my work now instead of doing it pretty much all myself. Again, used Upwork.com to hire someone to write short stories for me. Okay, so these stories were around, I think, 5,000 words, and it really didn't cost much to have maybe $50 per story. And I think I had 3 or 4 of these stories made. And with these type of stories, it was much more fun for me, because it didn't involve actually doing the work myself. I hired someone to do it for me, and then all I need to do is to kind of create the cover and upload them onto Amazon. And this is a strange one, and this is the next point that I want to try and make, is that your Amazon sales are so unpredictable. So for example, I have this book that I made in 2018, the cookbook, the first one that I made. It makes sales every single month, kind of like, really steady 20, 30, 40 sales every single month, like clockwork. Then you have some that just kind of make sales for a week and then die off. You have some that make sales for a month and die off. You have some that don't make sales for 2 months and then start making sales toward a certain period. So it's kind of all over the place. And with these like short stories that I created, these are really strange, because sometimes they sell really well in a month, and then another month they just don't really sell at all. But the takeaway here is that they do sell. And obviously I made my investment back on these quite quickly, which is the most important thing. And going forward, I do have ads being run to those books, so it continues to sort of keep them up the Amazon ranking. And yeah, they carry on making sales here and there, but nothing spectacular, that's for sure. Okay, so from there, it was more so now where we're starting to make sales. I actually just moved on and did the same thing here, where I just wanted to get into other niches. So just try other niches. And I think toward the end of 2019, I actually published 2 coloring books, which tanked, which did very, very badly. In fact, I think the worst books I've ever uploaded onto Amazon were these 2 coloring books. So like a unicorn coloring book, and I can't remember what the other one was. I think it might have been a mermaid coloring book for kids. Both of them did very, very badly. I spent a little bit of money on the interiors, not much, obviously, because the images are quite easy to create, so I didn't really spend that much on them, but they didn't make any money and they've never made me that money back. So I got put off of the idea of creating coloring books at that point, and then I moved back to kind of medium content books, more short stories, and I think I got into some word searches, which did not too bad. And obviously I've been using over the past couple of years some generators to have word searches made. Don't even bother trying to outsource word searches or create them yourself. It's not worth the time. Sort of niche specific word searches did okay for me. But this is the biggest thing here, is that when it came to actually increasing my income, so doubling down on niches that were doing well for me, so like the short stories or the cookbooks or certain types of low content books, doubling down on these books is what makes the real money here. So once you find something that you're good at selling within, then you can just hit that even harder and just keep going with that niche until you get bored of it and decide to move on to another one. So that paired with actually publishing in a variety of niches, you're going to find something eventually that works for you. So for me, back in the end of 2019 or start of 2020, whenever it was, coloring books just weren't working for me. I knew, everyone knows that people buy coloring books. There's a huge marketplace for it there's a huge market for it on Amazon, but I just couldn't get it to work. I just couldn't communicate my book that well with the customer that was buying it. Maybe I was just unlucky, maybe it just sucked, but yeah, it just didn't work for me. But the things that did work for me, I started doubling down on these. So books for seniors worked very, very well for me. Books very specifically just for seniors in a variety of niches for seniors worked very, very well for me. And that's when the money started to come in much better than it had before. And I think at that point I started realizing that actually, I'm not too bad at publishing. I'm quite good at this now. But the reality was, at that point, I'd been through so many disheartening moments that made me want to sort of quit. So in terms of things during that period between 2018 and 2020, what things really held me back, what things were the hardest for me to get past in this business. And I think these are some things that people just don't talk about. So when they happen to you, you kind of think that maybe you're screwing up with something, or you're not good enough, or you're not smart enough. But these type of things, they happen to everyone. And one of the big ones for me was formatting issues. It's just a headache, and there's no way you can really just go and quickly find out what the problem with your book is. So like when you upload a book and Amazon says, oh, this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, you need to do this, like this is an absolute headache. But it's just one of those things that you just have to persist with. You have to understand that it happens, and every time you have an error or get something happen, you'll get better at making sure that it doesn't happen again in future. Like it's all part of the business. So if this happens to you, if this is happening to you, then it is what it is. Like it just happens. Like we can't be perfect at this. And you just need to make sure that you just try your absolute hardest to resolve these issues. And of course that takes time. It is frustrating, but just know that plenty of other people are in the same boat when it comes to these formatting issues. Okay, so one of the other big things that has always held me back, and I'm sure a lot of people listening to this video have had the same experience of trying to talk to other people about what you want to do in terms of earning money. So earning money online, I guess, it's still kind of new to a lot of people, and a lot of people don't understand the potential, the freedom that comes with earning money online. People don't see it as a real job. They don't see it as a real business. And I think, I've been through this myself, where people literally laugh at the thought of it, or they don't understand it, or they criticize it, or they tell you to get a real job, or they think that you're taking the easy route out. I think that's the worst thing that I've heard someone say to me, is that, don't you feel like you're taking the easy route? And it's been nothing but easy, and that's what's so frustrating about doing things online. But I think you get to the point where you just don't care anymore, because it's your life, it's your business, and you should be able to do whatever you want with it without feeling guilty. And I think if you let these people get you down, then you're never ever gonna get to the places that you want to be, especially online. So like starting a publishing business again in 2018 2018 has been pretty much life-changing for me, because I've gone ahead, I've made a YouTube video, I've got a course out, I've had some affiliate promotions that have done quite well, and it's just been a really incredible experience for me. And none of that would have happened had I not actually gone through with it and put up with people telling me to get a real job and things like this. Like, this is the dream sort of coming true and building upon that dream. And I think if you stop now, or if you don't ever get started, then you'll never actually get to experience these incredible things and the opportunities that these online things actually open up for you. So my advice here again would be to just block out the noise. Like, people don't understand, a lot of people won't ever understand, and a lot of people won't be supportive with what you want to do. Who cares? This is your life. Okay, so that leads me on now to another thing that's been incredibly frustrating for me, and I know that people find this extremely frustrating as well, is when you make a book and you think it's going to be great, you've put lots of effort into it, you've put money into it, you've put time into it, and then it doesn't make any sales. So this is a huge reality when it comes to publishing, is that not all of your books are going to make sales. In fact, only a small portion of your books are going to make sales. And I know a lot of people are more transparent about this now than they have been before, but it's so true. Like, you do need to keep publishing, you do need to look at a variety of niches, and you do need to accept that at some point you'll probably lose money, you'll probably lose time. But if you get all these things right, and you have that sort of 20% of books that make you a good amount of money, 20 to 30% of books, then it is totally worth it. And it does come to a point where you can just leave the business running. Obviously, if you leave it running without kind of topping it up for too long, then you do run the risk of actually losing everything that you've built up. Which leads me on to another tip here, or this is just the way that I do things in order to stay sane, is, I think I spoke about this in the 7-day challenge videos that I created, was that I take time away from publishing. Like, I can't stand being sat on the computer for so long. I'll hit things quite hard for a few weeks, publish, research, get those books out there, and then just take a break for a couple of weeks, think about all the things that I want to sort of pursue, and then go hard at it again in a couple of weeks time. That's just the way that I do things in order to stay motivated. And if you're one of these people that can sit and work 24/7 pretty much every day in, day out, publishing books, then fair play to you. I can't do it. But I think, with publishing and anything really, you need to have some sort of structure to the way that you do things in order to keep pressing forward. So you don't just publish like 10 books in a week and then go 6 months without publishing any books because they've not sold. You need to just keep tracking forward in whatever way makes sense for you and in whatever way keeps motivated. We're looking at things in the long term here. Long-term business want long-term results as well. Okay, so that leads me very quickly back to my own journey here, and I forgot to mention this. So at the end of 2019 and the end of 2020, where we have our Q4s, obviously there's lots of sales to be made. Those 3 months, mostly November, December though, they made good money, like really good money, and it's something that you can always look forward to every single year. And that's one of the biggest ways that I stay motivated, is because I actually look forward to Q4 and the sales that come in during that time. And the sales that I had during those 3 months, they made up quite a big portion of my overall yearly sales. So Q4 is an amazing thing. It's definitely something you can look forward to. Use it as your motivation. When should you start preparing for Q4? Right now. When did you start preparing for the next Q4? Right now. Just keep publishing books and you're going to be sorted every single Q4 that comes about. Okay, so that leads me on to this year here. So it took me, I think after the last Q4, I kind of relaxed a little bit and actually wanted to get into YouTube. Obviously I created the YouTube channel, and that took up quite a bit of my time in order to get started, have the right equipment and that sort of thing. So I ended up actually not publishing too much during the first few months of this year. And also I kind of had an Etsy store that I was still fulfilling orders for at the end of last year as well. So that was quite crazy. I was quite busy doing those things, and I took a little break basically from Amazon publishing until I recently came back and I did more word searches, and I started to get back into coloring books again. So this year coloring books has been quite big for me. I've created, I think now 10 coloring books so far in the last maybe 3 months, and I have a few more being made now. So these coloring books are aimed toward children, adults, And I would say that they are in very, very competitive marketplaces. But a big change for me this year, and I think for a lot of people, and also going forward into next year and beyond, is running ads to your books. This has really helped me with my business this year. Running ads has been fantastic. So basically, I've been taking these competitive niches and I've been running ad campaigns to sort of keyword phrases within that. So for example, if I had a book that was a animal toddler coloring book or something, then I'd be running ads to that book, but not necessarily just for that keyword, if that makes sense. So I'd be sort of targeting animal coloring book for girls, or animal coloring book kids 3 to 8, toddler animal coloring book for girls, baby animal coloring book for kids. So loads of different types of keywords, and just trying to get those books ranked, not necessarily for like the parent phrase, but all these other phrases as well. And it's been going pretty well for the last couple months with my coloring books. So again, these aren't like super specific niches. And this leads me to my next big point here. Was a huge thing that's always made me go absolutely mad pretty much, was doing niche research. Within that, trying to find these like super gem, awesome, golden niches that have like no competition but tons of traffic going to them. So realistically, and this is just my opinion, I'm sure someone's going to disagree, I don't necessarily think you can pursue this in the long run, because how long are these hidden niches going to be there for? Like, I know that obviously more niches are going to appear in the future, but how long can you maintain doing this type of keyword research? And I hear it so many times. I get it in my Facebook group and in comments on my YouTube video about getting this sort of analysis paralysis, where we just can't find keywords, we can't find niches. Every niche that we find doesn't fit the criteria where we need to have X amount of competition, X amount of reviews, X BSR, and all these type of things. Like, we just get to the point where we get just so much information, too much information, and we end up doing nothing, because we look at that and we go, I can't do this every time I want to make a book. I can't go through this process every single time. And I'm not saying that this doesn't work, because it definitely does work, but I don't have, and I've never had the mental energy to go through with this level of niche research. So that, for me, what I like to do is just kind of now target more broad niches and then go deeper into those niches with the ads that I run to these books. Okay, so finding a niche that has traffic going to it is so easy. The animal coloring books, toddler coloring books, these type of things, so easy to find this type of niche. And of course it has lots of competition, but I'd rather book have lots of competition but I know has tons and tons of traffic going to it, and then try and make sales from that book by running ads to the book and then ranking that book higher up organically for different keyword phrases, instead of trying to find these like hidden keywords and these hidden niches. However, I do think with this, like, this is going to be ad dependent, so it's not something where I honestly don't think you could just make like a kid's coloring book and put it out there and organically have it make you a ton of sales. I think you need to really work on sending ads to these books. But for me, mentally, that's much easier than trying to find like really super specific niches and then hoping that gets organic sales, if that makes sense. And I think also when you have this mentality of where you create a book, you create a good book in a niche that has traffic going to it, and then you run ads to that book. So that's those two factors, where you find a niche that has traffic going to it and then you run ads to the book in that niche. Like this sort of fundamental pair is going to last pretty much forever. Whereas when it comes to finding these like really specific niches, like, is that really going to last forever? Possibly not. That moves me on to another mistake I feel like I've made over the last couple years especially, is being too stubborn and thinking that I don't need to use any kind of software or have any kind of help, and I can do this all by myself. And that's true. You can do all of this by yourself, no problem. You can do it, but you're adding so much time. Every time you do something yourself that could be done by a piece of software, you add more and more time, and this time adds up. And it gets to the point where you ask yourself, is it actually worth doing all this yourself? And I know some people are going to say, yes, of course, you do it all yourself. You don't need any software. And when they see people, YouTubers promoting software, they think it's scammy and people just try and take money off of you. But the reality is, like, I regret not using things like BookBolt, not using things like Helium 10, not using instant maze generator and instant puzzle generator sooner. All these things that I've promoted before, I believe in them 100%. I use them 100%. And honestly, I wish I'd started using, especially some of the cheaper ones like Bookbolt, I wish I'd started using them sooner, because, you know, when I first saw about places like Bookbolt and things like that, I'm a very skeptical person. As soon as I see things that are being sold to me that I can do myself, I'm like, no, I don't need this. Once I actually started using these things, I realized actually this is cutting a lot of time off of my business, and I'm happy to pay like a little bit of money to cut this time off of the manual work in my business. It's the same with outsourcing things. Like, I'm at a point now in my business where I'm making enough money to pretty much outsource everything. And if you can outsource everything, you know, if you want to scale your Amazon business, then at some point you're going to need to have the tools to do this. You're going to need maybe something like Bookbolt, and you're going to need to start outsourcing and having people do things for you. That's just the way that it is. You can't, unless you sit on your computer all day. If you want that type of life, that's fair enough, but I definitely don't. And that's what leads me to this part of my journey, which is now almost all outsourced, and hopefully focusing on scaling things up to earn more money. Then with that, of course, you can start, what I want to do is to start looking at other areas of making money online. So things like Fulfilled by Amazon, might even revisit my Etsy shop, and of course to continue creating YouTube videos as well. And also that actually leads me on to another point here, and that is the fear that comes with just having one business. Now, I don't want to put anyone off from publishing, because it's an amazing opportunity, always will be, but I don't know if anyone else feels this, but there's always this kind of looming fear that something's going to go wrong and Amazon's just going to terminate your account, and all this effort is going to be for nothing. So for me, I want to try and, I don't want to put all my eggs into the same basket. Start using the money that I earn from publishing to invest into other projects, and have multiple projects going on, just in case like one dies, and of course obviously to make more money. And if I had to recommend something here, it would be to definitely, if you're making enough money with Amazon, you're currently building with Amazon, then I would certainly, if you have the time in your life or the money in your life to do this, is to look at other areas online as well. So that kind of brings me to the end of this video actually, and if I had to sum things up, I would say that publishing on Amazon isn't easy. It definitely takes time, but it is definitely worth it. And I hope the point here has been picked up from the video, that if someone like me can earn money from publishing, and you know, I'm someone that doesn't put that many hours into this business, I'm someone that doesn't put much money into this business. If I can start seeing sales, then I 100% believe that you can start seeing sales as well. Okay, so that's it for this video. Now, I'm aware that there's probably not many people that have got to this point. However, if you have got to this point, what I'm going to do is, if you're the first person in the comments to write the comment free course, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you a promo code to my course, and you can get that for free, just to thank you for going through the entirety of this video. So the first person that writes free course into the comments will get a free copy of my course. Okay, right, that's it for this video. I'll see you very soon.